All right, chapter 4, verses 1 through 8.
I charge thee therefore before God and the Lord Jesus Christ, who shall judge the quick and the dead, and will appear in his kingdom. Preach the word, be instant season, out of season. Reprove, rebuke, exhort with all long suffering and doctrine. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers, having itching ears, and they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall return to faith. But watch thou in all things, endure affliction, do the work of an evangelist, make full proof of thy ministry. For I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight, I have finished my course, I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for my crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me that day, and not to me only, but unto all them also that love his appearing.
All right, and then the last passage, Ephesians 4, verses 11 through 16. And he gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, and teachers to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up the body of Christ, until we all attain to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, so that we may no longer be children, tossed to and fro by the waves, and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by human cunning, by craftiness and deceitful schemes. Rather, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into Him who is the head, into Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped, when each part is working properly, makes the body grow so that it builds itself up in love. So, I compiled a list of things that I pulled out from these passages, but I'd like to start with, what are some of the things that you noticed? What stood out to you from these passages? As far as qualities of ministers, what it means to serve, what ministry is all about.
I think that it's that when the time is come and you've done what you've done, what you were supposed to have said, then you will be rewarded.
Okay, so a reward awaits those that serve. What else?
A lot of these passages have a lot of attributes that you're supposed to pursue.
Okay.
So, recurring things are obviously important behind it.
Yeah, that not only are you to have these characteristics, these are the kind of things you're supposed to pursue, right? And it's not just kind of sit back and wait for it to happen. It's kind of that active, go out and try to be, and get these characteristics. And certainly a lot of those characteristics show up in the fruit of the Spirit, right? So the Spirit produces them. So in one sense we have God producing through us, but also this idea that these are the kind of things that we're supposed to pursue. Anything else you noticed?
I like 2 Timothy 4 when it says, preach the word, be ready. And I think that really applies to us. If we're going to be like preachers and like ministers, you gotta be ready at any time to, not just in like a church setting, I mean any time. If you're at a store, at a school, or whatever, you gotta be ready.
Yeah, that idea of at any time you could be called upon to serve in the sense of, specifically in that sense, sharing the message, right? And so, somebody could ask us out of the blue. It could happen in a situation that it's completely unexpected. You have the opportunity to talk about the message. Well, you might not be in, your best form, right? It's the difference of the preacher that stands up, is polished, and I've worked on my sermon and got my outline and I got my points, and so I'm ready to go. When somebody just comes, a friend approaches you and asks something, or it just comes up in a conversation, you got to be ready then too. And you've got to be ready whether people want to hear or whether they don't want to hear. Because sometimes people need to hear the things that they don't want to hear. So we got to be ready. Anything else you notice?
There's a lot of warnings about preserving the truth.
All right, so there's that idea of preserving the truth, and protecting the truth, holding on to the truth. Several of these are ones that I had as well, and so I'll share with you what I had and point out some other things. First is that idea of sound doctrine or healthy teaching. There's a variety of ways it gets translated in the different translations, but this idea that there is healthy teaching. And of course, the health there is not talking about physical health, although certainly we can find scriptures that give us guidance in physical health as well. But it's that spiritual health. Right? There's healthy teaching, but there's also unhealthy teaching. Right? And so hold on to that sound doctrine, that teaching that is going to be healthy for you spiritually and going to be spiritually helpful for the people that you're in contact with.
Do you know the last chapter of the verse that says that the teachers will be judged more for what what's happening?
Yeah, and it's James chapter 3. I think it's verses 1 and 2, where he encourages people not to be, don't many of you be teachers. Now, he specifically means kind of those public teachers. Right? Because there's an expectation that as Christians we're all kind of teaching. Some of it's going to just be talking with your friend and trying to show them the gospel. But as far as what he's talking about there are these kind of publicly recognized teachers, because the public recognized teacher is going to experience the harsher judgment. And so there is this healthy teaching then that you have to hold on to. And that should be what is the center of the message of your servants. Secondly, of course, throughout these passages and others as well, that idea of ministry is that idea of service, that you are a servant of God. Again, whether that's your full-time job or whether that is just who you are as a Christian and you have a different full-time job. What's the difference between a servant and a master?
Servant's the one going out there and doing all the hard work. Usually the master is the one kind of sitting back, delegating who's going to be doing what that day.
Right. So, in the context of ministry, God is the master, we are the servants. Right? And so we don't need to be sitting back waiting for somebody else to be doing something. We need to be going. Additionally, of course, the mindset of a servant is different than the mindset of a master. The mindset of a servant is, my purpose is to do the master's will. I'm to serve God. Now, sometimes that, yes, doesn't mean that servants delegate to other servants, but the idea is I am a servant. I am not a lord. I am not a master. Thirdly, one of the things that comes out is the importance of training. Now, particularly in those first passages, it talks about training for godliness. So it's a part of the program here that you take sermon prep and delivery, and you take preparing and delivering Bible lessons. It used to be called sermon prep and delivery. You take preparing and delivering Bible lessons. You take some other courses that are meant to train you. You can serve without having those courses, but you should be trained for both godliness and for service. Meaning that if you have the heart of, I want to serve God, and I want to serve God by sharing His message with the people around me, you have to train yourself to know what that message is, right? And so that might be Bible study. It might be, exercising self-control, developing spiritual discipline. It might be getting some, if you want to, getting better ideas of how to approach people to share the message, right? So training is an important part of that. It doesn't have to be the kind of official training we're doing here, though I think that's helpful. But the servant, the teacher, the minister is going to be trained. They're going to have someone who's guiding them helping them develop those abilities, both for the spiritual discipline and for the service that they're called upon to do. Perseverance. Serving people in any capacity is not easy. And there will be times where, no matter how you're serving God, there will be times where you want to quit. Because the people that you're trying to reach aren't wanting to listen to you. You are teaching the truth and they don't want to hear it. There is some sort of difficulty that arises. People are saying bad things about you. There are going to be things. If you're serving God, right, things are going to happen that are persecuting you or are difficult for you, and you are going to want to quit. I think the whole reason it shows up in these passages is because Timothy wanted to quit. But the minister has to persevere. Doesn't make it easy. Doesn't mean you have to stay at a specific place. Right? And so if you're a youth and family minister at a church and the parents are just, it doesn't mean you have to stay there. Or that you have to stay a youth minister, but you got to persevere. And so when difficulty comes, don't have your first response be, I'm giving it all up. Right? Perseverance is what the minister needs to have, that ability to continue throughout the difficulties. Paul also, of course, encourages Timothy to be an example to the people. Specifically, he mentions some issues related to morality, to his faith. People, as a minister, people should be able to look to you as an example. Paul talks in several places along the lines of, to the churches that he's a part of, imitate me as I imitate Christ. So it's a recognition that we aren't always going to be the perfect example. But we should recognize that we are an example. People should be able to look at us and say, I want to live that way because that's the way Christ wants me to live. Now again, it should be follow me as I follow Christ, right? And so it should never be about follow me alone. But you should be able to look at my life and say, I want to live that way because I see in that person's life Christ. And so we as ministers need to be like that as well. There's a couple other qualities that I want to pull from these passages, but we'll pick that up next Wednesday. Don't forget, Monday is Labor Day, so no class. No cheering until after you leave the classroom. But we'll pick that up, and then we'll also talk about some other things related to personality, ministry, those kind of things that are important to pay attention to. So we'll pick that up next time.